Welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be reprocessing the Lobster Claw Nebula or SH2-157. My name is Morten and you are watching Frost Astrophotography. July is coming to an end and I'm eagerly awaiting the darkness, but right now we only have a couple of hours of civil darkness and that is not enough to see any stars here at 63 degrees north. So we have to wait a while longer to test the new Poseidon-M Pro camera and see how that will perform in my home observatory. Until then, I'm continuing to reprocess old data, so let's dive into PixInsight. Before we get started in PixInsight, I just wanted to give you an update on the current situation of darkness here at 63 degrees north, Örnsköldsvik in the northern part of Sweden. As you can see in clear outside here, we do not have any nautical darkness or astro darkness yet. We only have civil darkness from around 1:45 midnight until 2 o'clock in the morning. The sun sets at about 10 o'clock right now and it rises about 3:42 in the morning. So I'm still waiting. There's no chance of seeing any stars yet. I will have to wait until we get to nautical darkness, at least I would say, and that will be a while longer. Today we are doing a reprocessing of the Lobster Claw Nebula or SH2-157. This is a total of 13.6 hours, 163 light frames, and that is 74 HA, 4503 and 44S2. As you can see in the stacked 03 here, we have a bit of gradients going on here, and I normally only run through the automated dynamic background extraction, but in this case I also think that I will do a gradient correction on the image here. Just to demonstrate how this could be done, I'm starting now without doing any dynamic crop whatsoever. We will get into that later, but I will start my gradient correction here and I will simply use the default values and run it here on this image. And then I will remove and redo the screen transfer stretch. As you can see here, we made a bit of a difference. After that, I normally run through the automated dynamic background extraction script from SETI-Astro. You can use the normal dynamic background extraction if you want, but I find that the result with this is fairly good. And I also use that with the default settings here. So I will execute that on this image and I will see about the result here. I will do a stretch And this is the result. So I will simply back this up to original. And now we have the original O3 on the left here. And we have the corrected O3 on the right. So this one has been modified in that way that we have removed the gradients here and we have run through an automated dynamic background extraction, making this image usable to continue on to the next step. I will quickly take you through the linear phase of the image processing here on the stacked H alpha. And this is the original with a dynamic crop. And on the right here you have a dynamic background extraction using the SETI-Astro script. And then I did a linear fit to the other two frames, S2 and O3, like I always do. I ran through the blur exterminator and the noise exterminator. So I can back this up and compare the images here. On the left we have the original stacked and drizzled H alpha, and on the right the complete linear phase processing of this image. And we can zoom in on a small portion here to compare these two images. And you can see here that we have an amazing result. As always, this is not unexpected at all, and it's not that much of a difference. I would say if you look at my old processing, I will see if I can find the old processing of this image. Here it is. And I will see if we can't compare these two images to see if we see any noticeable difference here. Now this is the exact same processing, although I might not have done gradient correction and probably older versions because PixInsight has been updated. But on the left here is my 2024 version of the Lobster Claw linear processing results, and on the right here is the 2025 results. Maybe there's a small difference here. Let's zoom in on this little area of stars. I think maybe a little bit around the background here, maybe a little bit better result on the stars. And that could possibly be updated blur exterminator or noise exterminator, but a little bit of a difference, absolutely. Not a huge difference so far, but a little bit. And we will see when we're moving on to the next phase here in the nonlinear processing of this image. These are the starless versions of H alpha, O3 and S2. They have been stretched just simply with the script here from SETI-Astro statistical stretch and the sketchpad IHDR. In cases where that works fine, I usually use them. In cases where that doesn't work as well, I use generalized hyperbolic stretch. I can use a combination of the two if necessary. So I'm going to open up the old versions of these to compare the nonlinear HA starless, O3 starless. I did some background manipulation on those three as well. I will open those versions. I did the same on these because I don't really want to use remnants of stars, for example. But already here we can see that if we compare H alpha here, for example, you can see that H alpha on the right here is the old version and H alpha on the left is the new version. and I have stretched this far more aggressively to reveal details. And if we take a look at the other filters here, O3 for example, you can see that I didn't really address the gradients in the image here, which led me to have this little blob of light pollution in the bottom left corner in the old version. And I didn't remove these remnants of stars that I've done in my current version here. So I would say a little bit more attentive to details. And let's look at the S2 finally. The same as the H alpha, a far more aggressive stretch on this one, revealing more details. Much more aggressive in contrast of the stretch, I would say here. So we will see moving forward with this image now, and I will open up my non-linear processing steps so we can all look at the processing in detail. So I will start with the starless there, and I will also open up my color masks, maybe, well, maybe not. Let's take all of my images. There are a few here to open up. Starting with a normal SHO integration, you can see here that we get a lot of green. It's always hard when you're doing aggressive stretches, I would say, to know exactly where you will end up, because it's hard to get the balance in the 3 light frames. So in the older image, I think I had a little more darker orange-ish color to start with in the SHO integration after running SCNR than I have now, but that doesn't have to be bad. I'm always open to making alternative versions of SHO as long as I'm happy with the final result. So this is the integration, and after integrating I normally run through SCNR, you know that by now, and end up with something that looks like the image to the right here. I'm fairly happy with that initial one. After that I do my first color manipulations. And in this case I created color masks for cyan and yellow and red and blue. I didn't end up using all of them because that would affect the overall color composition too much. I used the blue one and the cyan one to increase the blue. I increased the red portions of the image here a little bit on the right. That was it for the first color calibration. Then I ran through sharpening, and I also ran through some noise reduction. And I usually just run a noise exterminator again. I earlier almost exclusively used TGV denoise, but I find that that process is a little bit more time consuming, and the results are similar, if not better, with the noise exterminator. In this case, there weren't that much noise left, so I could have skipped it altogether, I guess. Now for the main improvement that I didn't have in my workflow earlier is the addition of synthetic luminance, and I add this in all of my images now, either from using my starless H alpha or by using an extracted luminance from the previous step in the non-linear processing phase. If you can use the H alpha or not depends on exactly how it is in terms of brightness and how much data you have in relation to the other two frames, I would say. It could alter the color composition drastically of the image. In this case, it did not, so I decided to go with the starless H alpha here. So if you want to check out how I use my H alpha starless as a synthetic luminance, go into the full processing guide and check out that section. We can compare in this image a small section just to give you a little hint of how it has improved the image. And you can see here that we increase the details and the contrast of the image. We can move on to a structure like this one. The key is here to not overdo it, I would say. You shouldn't have too much force when you're doing this. You can over sharpen and you can use the local histogram transformation too much, I would say, on the synthetic luminance before adding it back onto your RGB image, and that would be bad. You have to find a nice balance. I also run through the dark structure enhance script here, enhancing some of these regions with dark structures. As you can see, the difference between those two, I really like that one. I almost always use it in different settings. And then I did some more color calibrations. So we can actually compare it to the first. Well, we could compare it to the first without a CNR, but that wouldn't be so much fun, I would say. We're going to compare it with the first with just a CNR. I'm going to zoom in on this area here, and you can compare these two. You can see that we have added a lot more details and structure and contrast to the processing here. So I'm fairly pleased with that result. Now that I have my starless image, I need to make my stars. I didn't show anything from that processing this time. It is basically the same, but in the last image I used SHO stars. In this image I used my regular synthetic RGB. That is basically SHO stars, upon which you run through the image solver, and then you run through the spectrophotometric color calibration to calibrate the colors to be as true as possible. And then you simply join the starless and the stars version with pixel math. And you might want to adjust some colors or levels, some curves after that. I ended up with this final version here, the Lobster Claw Nebula 13.6 hours in SHO with the synthetic RGB stars. And you can see a lot more details here. I will compare the two, of course. I will decrease the size of this, and then we will open up the last one, or the 24 version that we are comparing with in this reprocessing. In this version you have a lot more of the traditional orange feel of it, but I didn't nearly stretch the light frames as much as I should have, which led to the fact that I lost all of the details that you can see here around the main object in this image. All of this cloud dust, all of this up here, especially this around the left, and a lot of the O3 data that is behind here, behind all of this. And this is exactly the same data. Nothing new, exactly the same stacked. I haven't restacked anything. I just took the same stacked and drizzled master light frames that I used last time, and I just applied my latest processing steps on them, producing this result you can see on the left here. So enjoy this image, and hopefully I will be up and running with my new Player One Astronomy Poseidon-M Pro camera and the SHO LRGB filters from Player One. It's going to be very interesting to see how that perform. I can't wait for the darkness to come here at 63 degrees north. I hope you will stay tuned for that, even though it might take a while to gather the data for my first images. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're not already doing so. Until the next video, I wish you have clear skies.